Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I am not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we discuss a topic, come up with some thoughts, some ideas, sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. For today's topic, trainers, well, I did what I usually do. I went through different sites and things and Googled and etc. Looked at dog trainer news and things. And what I saw was that unfortunately there's a lot of things out there lately about trainers and abusing dogs. And it seems as though a lot of it's more from board and train, but I thought it would be interesting, trainers, to talk, and maybe this is more for owners than for trainers today, but that's okay because we are the Dog Trainers Connection and we try and bring you dog training information for both trainers and clients. So I thought it would be interesting today, trainers, to talk about how do you choose a trainer? How do you choose, in particular, board and train, since that seems to be the thing that really people were talking about as far as the problems that people have been having. But what are the guidelines that you should look at? What are the things that you should look at? And obviously, I'm not talking about anybody on this video today, because I know you're all very good trainers, and I know that some of you do the board and train, but what about the ones who don't, and how do you spot that or keep yourself from getting into that kind of a situation? And Valerie, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you today.
Can you define problems and define animal abuse, please?
I have been seeing things such as somebody took a dog, swung it over their head and slammed it into the ground. I've seen that there are, I'm not talking about using negative reinforcement. I'm not talking about that. I'm more talking about criminal. There are certain things, there's something going on now in Louisiana. I believe that there's something going on in Connecticut, Florida, California, Illinois.
Okay, so you're not talking about controversial issues in the dog training community. You're talking about actual abuse.
I'm talking about actual abuse. And how do you spot that as a possibility, and what can you do as an owner to keep yourself from that situation?
Sorry, Valerie, go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, we do board and train. It's not at the level of mass production like some of the controversial places have much larger facilities and
Sure.
possibly a smaller staff to dog ratio than we have. We only take 4 at a time per month. And we have 3 trainers. So the ratio is good. The recommendation I would make, if my family were looking for a dog trainer and you thought they needed a board and train, and they weren't living near me where I could know who the people are and how to recommend, to say, oh, I know them, this is good or not. The first thing I would do, and I do this myself, I do it with veterinary care, and I encourage people who call me for training to look through, actually, this is difficult because I don't give out client information. My clients find each other because I live in a small and service a pretty small area.
Sure.
But I do, the word of mouth gets around about the results people are seeing. And most of my recommendations come from the veterinarian or other trainers. My referrals come from really, really reputable trainers in both the pure positive, or however you want it, the least invasive, whatever grouping you want. The people send me dogs from all of the different, send me referrals from all of the different, I'm going off on a tangent, sorry. I'm trying to think about it. I wasn't prepared for an answer, but I think I would recommend them go see the facility, see the dogs they're training.
Sure.
Look at if they want to demonstrate with their dogs. Do those dogs look happy? Are they comfortable with their owners? Do they look like they're working in partnership, or is it forced? what kind of comments do they have on Facebook from their community, from their clients? And I don't mean just reviews. If you look up New Paltz dog training on Facebook, you'll see how many people are referring us, or me in particular, and us. And that would give somebody from outside a better review than 5 Google stars or something on Facebook. And then people talking about what they learned with us. And then also, because of the pandemic, we haven't been doing any kind of facility tours, but I also encourage people to find out if they're able to get videos of the dogs while they're in training, if they're getting updates from the dogs while the dogs are in training. I don't do the kind of updates that accommodate people being anxious about their dog when that's part of the problem. But I do what I consider really healthy updates. I send videos of the dogs playing. I send videos of the dogs in training. I keep in touch with them about any problems or issues. So I think that I don't have a really specific list, but I would want to know that the community appreciates the work that the trainer's doing, and that veterinarians and other trainers are invested in supporting that work.
Okay.
I think I'd like to answer that again, maybe after I hear other people's responses.
Okay, that's all right. We can come back to you. Does anybody want to?
That's how I picked my own trainers and my mentors and my where I would board my dog. I drive all the way to Vermont I'm in Southern New York. I drive all the way to Northern Vermont to board my dogs because I didn't really have a good feeling about people around me back when, but I did trust that trainer. So I drove up there to go to him.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask, does anybody want to add anything to that? Does anybody want to chime in? Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
I think I agree with everything Valerie said. I think it boils down to transparency. As long as there's transparency in the process, and this I also feel goes for doggy daycares and boarding facilities. Unless you personally know the people working there and know from experience and exposure how they handle the dogs, I'm going to look for a place that has, live streaming, where you can go on a website and see what's going on the camera. They're not hiding things. But previous to that, I would also look for training philosophy. Personally, I would look for, positive reinforcement, rewards-based type of training, least invasive, minimally aversive type of training. But yeah, checking with the community and neighbors and people who've used them. Absolutely, I agree with all of that. That all said, I would never put my dog in board and train. That's just me.
That's interesting. Valerie, something you said it might not be relevant. I think it was that you said that all different types of trainers refer to you.
Yeah.
The average pet owner may not really know the language that we use. They might not really understand what does positive reinforcement mean, force-free, all of the jargon that we use. But an eclectic group of people that would refer you or somebody else is better than just one particular niche, and this goes along with, of course,
On a Zoom.
our whole thing with Dog Trainer Connection, that diversity,
Right.
because somebody may say, well, I took my dog, they had X issue to this board and train. Maybe you need a different type of trainer for a board and train, or you're going for a different reason. So I thought that was relevant, what you said. I just wanted to add that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I think it's also important that the trainer explain why they think the dog needs a board and train over a different type of program. So, if I can put a dog in privates instead of the board and train and help the owner train their own dog, that's a better long-term outcome than taking their dog and making it love us and really in partnership with us. So when I can direct people to private lessons rather than, so I think if somebody's talking about a board and train, I want to know, why are you choosing that over private lessons or a different, my philosophy about that is a whole other topic, but yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because they need to have realistic expectations
Right.
for what their issues are. And if they're looking for a quick fix, they might not be the right client for a board and train.
Well, and sometimes a dog really needs a rehab that's going to be over the client's head, or they
Mhm.
can't see they're unable to visualize the dog in a different place. And I would like to be able to bring the dog back to them in a condition where the owner's then able to learn faster themselves. That's I would think that's probably my primary reason for doing a board and train, is when the dog is outside of for whether it's emotional, physical, or the dog's in really bad shape, and needs a total rehab of some kind. Then I will recommend a board and train and explain why it's the client. I don't start with every dog that comes to me as a board and train.
So
I
that
think I would.
that leads me to this question, which is is that something that's being done too much with training? And I'm asking all the trainers in this, is board and train something that's become like the go-to, and, oh, we'll just do this, and this is how we're going to, make our business or make our money, or however you want to put it? Or is there a problem with that, I guess, is really what I'm asking. I don't know the answer, and that's
Well,
why I'm asking it.
I just wanted to quickly say that on some of the Facebook threads that I've been on, I've heard really young trainers or more beginner trainers talking about board and trains,
Mm-hmm.
and having a lot of dogs in their place. And
Mm-hmm.
that's probably not, that might be a recipe for disaster. I'm putting it bluntly, because they're taking on too much. They may not know the dog well. Some people will take a board and train if the dog's been in their classes.
Sure.
And they know the person and they know the dog. But I do think some people are doing it for a business purpose and to make a lot of money quickly. And I think that's probably where some of the abuse issues come in, or the bad results of the board and trains.
Yeah.
I think some of the newer, younger trainers take on board and trains because they don't have the experience in a class setting or in a one-on-one setting. They would prefer to be training dogs than training people.
Mm-hmm.
And in a board and train, that dog is in your house for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you may have very little contact with the owner.
Right.
Other than, electronic contact, depending on the method they set up. And for some people, that is more comfortable for them, that there's minimal human contact.
Mm-hmm.
The problem becomes the transfer. And having trained assistance dogs for 20 years,
yeah,
I know that in assistance dogs, we train the dog typically, and we transfer it over to the client.
Mm-hmm.
And that even if we train the dog at this level, when the client gets it, it's going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of why we try to train, to the 90%,
to the
highest level we can, because whenever you transfer a dog over, whether it's an assistance dog, whether it's a board and train, whatever it is, when there's a transfer from one person to another, there's going to be a loss of some skill or some level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of the younger, newer trainers don't have the skills to transition the dogs, and the dogs do great for them, but they don't always do as great with the client, because some of these people don't have the skills, the knowledge, the reality that because the dog did so great with you doesn't mean it's going to do so great with the client.
Yes.
Until you can transfer over some of your skill to the client. And I hear that a lot in the Facebook groups that, the dog was great with me, but now that it's back home, it's XYZ,
Sure.
and the client is unhappy. Well, I hear a lot of talk of sort of transferring trainer skills over to clients. And then I see trainers talk about, look, our clients don't want to be dog trainers. They just want to be pet owners. They just want nice pets. They don't want projects.
Yeah.
So we need to find a way to transfer stuff over to them that doesn't require that level of skill, or maybe it's just the dogs they have. I don't know, but that's where, as somebody who's never really, I've never offered board and train. It's not, my mentor did to a certain extent. I never did. I just do classes. I'd rather train you to train your dog.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Steve, has it changed?
I don't know if it's changed, you know, I mean, I don't like the money grab, you know, if it's about money grabbing, you shouldn't be in the dog business. And, you know, I think a lot of dogs come not because people understand what obedience is, you know, they come with the problems.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me a lot of people don't mind getting dragged down the street on a leash, you know, but they care is reactive on the leash, or they care if the dog is not housebroken, or they care, you know, if there's no sociability and all that kind of stuff. And they want to those dogs in a board and train with some expectation, you know, fearful dog. My dog's afraid, you know, and what they drop it off and they're like, well, he just needs to learn to stay. And if you say to him, well, this dog maybe isn't capable of doing that, you know, who's going to say that? You know, like he's too nervous a dog to learn to do a reliable stay. You know, he's afraid. If the dog's not going to be disobedient, if a car backfires and the dog blasts off because it thinks it's going to die, yeah, that's not being disobedient. That's the nature of the dog, you know. But you're going to dump that dog on somebody. What are they going to do to make that dog stay? You know, like allow the dog to urinate on itself. You know, what are they going to do to the dog in some effort to appease a client, instead of having, like Pam says, you know, some sort of ability to communicate with the owner about what's possible and not possible. It's not, you know, you got to start with that. What is this particular dog capable of?
Yes.
Right away looking to give it to you with totally unrealistic expectations. You got to wonder if they're willing to take it, what they're willing to do to make that happen. And that's, you know, I got one guy in South Jersey that I send folks to when they really insist on a board and train. And because he's like got the magic, you know, but he called me at one point and he said, what's wrong with your clients? And I said, what do you mean? I'm sending you some amazing clients. And he goes, they're all very nice, Steve, but they have this idea that they're going on vacation and they're going to drop the dog off. We'll pick them up in 2 weeks. And he says to them, no, you won't. I'll call you when the dog's ready. I'll tell you when to come get the dog. I don't know how long it'll be because I'm not going to start training the dog until after I've developed a relationship with the dog. Then I'll start the training. I can't guess how long this will take. Don't tell me you're coming back in 2 weeks. It doesn't work that way. And I love this guy because he's very clear about these kinds of things. You know, he's old, but I mean, you know, he's still training in a club format. You know, he's got a lot of stuff going on. He's great at it, like great at it. But he doesn't like, you know, he doesn't like that attitude of, I'm dropping it off for 2 weeks. This is the amount of time I'm giving you, dog trainer, to get it right for me. It's nah, you know, So I worry about all that stuff, you know, all that. I did some board and train myself back in the day when I had my facility, but I told anybody who dropped a dog off, I basically pushed them. I'm like, you know, I normally would not take the dog. And they're like, why not? You got a kennel. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm happy to have it. But, you know, I'm telling you, when you come pick the dog up, it's going to work for me, right? What's going to happen when I give you the leash? You know, what do you think's going to happen? And if you want to come back and we work together and we'll do this thing and, you know, you sort of try to mimic, you know, the procedures, then you'll do better. You know, but it's best, as we all will agree, I'm sure, if the owner learns to become a half of a dog trainer, for God's sake, learn something about timing and reinforcement and the elements, it can't get better than that. Because then throughout the lifetime of the dog, they'll say to themselves, I want to teach this. And they'll have a way to go. They'll know something about how to teach. They don't need you. You've already taught them the elements of teaching. So, you know, you're giving them a skill set that they keep forever if you do it well. but to just dump a dog off, and I don't like, the whole, forget about the abuse is horrible. We obviously, I mean, we talked about this a lot, Jeff, huh? No credentials necessary. Who's a dog trainer?
Yeah.
Where did you get your skills from? Well, I read, the Monks of New Skeet book, or whatever. Something it's like, it's like, that's it, huh? That's
Yeah.
it. Great book. I read that thing 10 times. It's like, oh my God, this is frightening. So, it's always scary. It's always scary. It's most scary when the owner really doesn't want any responsibility.
Sure.
When I get that on the phone from somebody, I'm not taking the client. When I get on the phone and they're telling me what I'm going to do for them, and that I can feel that they're already on the out of this thing, I'm not going to take it. What do I need the aggravation for? I'm not going to do it, because they'll be like stray cats. If you train their dog a little bit, and you're really making moves, everything's happening, but they're going to come back every other day with this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. They don't listen, they don't want to do, they just want it done. And, I mean, I guess we all have clients that have too much money and they think that solves the problem.
They think it fixes it.
I am going to pay you anything you want. I'm like, I don't want your money. I don't want you as a client. Get lost.
Mm.
I feel bad for your dog. I want to say these things half the time. I don't want your money and I feel bad for your dog because you shouldn't have a dog, right? Fish are nice. I always say that. Tropical fish, lovely. Horrible.
Yeah. Jeff?
Yeah, I like what everybody shared. It's when choosing a board and train, I mean, I did it for the public when I was up in Jersey. Since I've been down here in North Carolina, I don't even call it board and train. I call it my enrichment program, and it's only for homeless dogs. I don't service the public in that capacity anymore. Obviously, I still do private training. So it's a little different down here, but I can tell you when I was doing up in Jersey, I might have kept the dog at my shop on a board and train, or I might have kept a dog or two at my house. So I did it on a very small scale.
Yeah.
And, one of the first things was the guarantee. And, do you guarantee it? I said, absolutely. I guarantee your dog will listen to me, right? Kind of like what Steve said, 100%, no doubt in my mind. Right? So, but sometimes we have to pose the question, maybe just rhetorically, right? That, why do you have a dog? Why did you get a dog? Right? Maybe that's one of the things that you're talking to people about if they're inquiring about a board and train. I personally, if I had to sell people on training, I'd be like, look, for a fraction of the cost of a board and train, you can get 2 or 3 sessions with a private trainer and accomplish so much more that is not only going to address immediate concerns, it's also going to set you up for a lifetime of balance, right? And, with puppies, I would say if someone doesn't have time to socialize a puppy and the boarding or training facility has a lot of dogs and people around, then it might be worth it just for the socialization alone, because, I say it all the time, if people can only do one thing with their puppies, it's socialize them. Like if they just don't have time to train them and do that kind of crap, socialize them, please, because you can't recapture that crucial socialization window when puppies are young. You could teach a dog, you could teach an old dog new tricks. Absolutely, you can. You cannot recapture crucial socialization stages, right? So I would say in that capacity, I'm if someone wanted to, I might be like, yeah, then go to so-and-so, right? Which leads us to how do you choose that? And, like a lot like where everyone said, transparency, and even here, even though I don't service the public anymore, I have an open door policy. Granted, some of the rescues that send me dogs obviously are outside my area, but the ones that are local, they come here often. I'm like, come on. I also share video with my clients, especially when they're out of the area, and they're not always, look how good he's doing. They're real. Look, this is what I'm friggin' dealing with right now. I literally
Sure.
this is kind of going along with why I asked about abuse, because there's abuse And
Yeah.
then there's people who get their feathers rustled because a
Yes.
dog is perceived to be mishandled.
Yes.
Well, I had a 90-pound dog here a few months ago that I literally had to snare and toss in the cage to protect myself.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't abuse, it was self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you, if that was caught on camera, I bet you that my career would be over. Because it would go around some internet thing. Oh my God, look, Jeff's abusive. No, Jeff almost that's what happened. Now, granted, I was, pardon my language, YouTube.
They're used to it, Jeff.
That's Jersey for I was working with a human aggressive dog. Now, fortunately, obviously, I worked through those issues, and
Sure.
but things happen out of our control, and sometimes we react, right? I did not plan that. It didn't even cross my mind to where our relationship, and this was only over the first couple of days. Like everything was going great, and I had no choice.
Sure.
So it is what it is, right? You're describing, that's why I asked you earlier. People flipping dogs over, and
Yes.
I mean, that those are not reactive. Those are probably prepared scenarios where maybe the correction goes awry. I don't know what the hell they were thinking if they're flipping dogs over their head.
I have no idea.
And then, the shelter aspect of it too comes up, because I had many similar experiences in my years of shelter work where, you're working with a big dog and you do whatever the heck you can to get that dog back in the kennel to keep you and everybody else safe. Right.
Sure.
That's why I had asked that question early on.
Yeah, and I fully understood that, Jeff.
But what I'm talking about right now, like I would admit what I did any day of the week, because that's what I had to do in that moment, right?
Right.
It has no bearing. That's not training. That's just that's just a crappy situation, right?
Yeah.
The one thing about board and trains is, especially if the owner is not involved. I know a lot of board and trains, regardless of where they fall on the dog training spectrum, they require their people to come at least once or twice a week. Right. And going to what everybody said, right, that helps the transition of power all along the way in separate stages. Right. So then at the end, when the dog is ready, right, there's already a foundation of that transfer of handling or power, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
So I like board and trains that do it that way. But at the end of the day, I personally, and I've done, again, boarding and training for the public up in Jersey. I do it rescues down here. When a rescue's local, if that dog is in foster, I'm like, look, don't give me X amount of dollars to send this dog here for a month. I said, they're a half hour from me. Let me go there a couple of times. It's better. If there's a dog owner watching this, it's better to do it that way. And I am sorry to people who make a living doing boarding and training only. But I'm trying not to be too critical.
Don't worry, Jeff. They'll always have customers.
Pet owner responsibility, right? It's not our job as trainers to sell someone on what is pet owner responsibility. People who just do board and trains, they're going to sell people on the board and train.
Yeah.
Right. I want to sell people on how can you have a better relationship with your dog for the next 15 years?
Yep.
That's what I want to sell you on. Right. So I think when it comes to choosing that, at the end of the day, word of mouth, I don't care. It's 2022. We are in the digital age. Nothing beats word of mouth. It is still the best resource. Word of mouth trumps Yelp any day of the week.
Yes.
I don't care because I don't know who these people are on Yelp. Who the hell is John C. from Alabama? I don't know. Right. But my buddy Bob, his uncle, hired Jane Doe, and his dog is amazing.
Right.
That's what you want to look for. And when veterinarians and other trainers and other professionals are referring, another professional, that tells you a lot too.
Yes.
If professionals and the pet groomers, dog walkers, we're not going to put our names on the line for some schmuck who's going to abuse animals and and not do
Right.
what's in your best interest. At least
Okay.
I don't think any of us here would. Right?
Yes, I would
You
fully
know,
agree with that.
referring dog trainers is not multi-level marketing. We don't get a kickback from it. You know?
Right.
But you know, and then at the end of the day, if someone has a hard time with a dog, and I think Valerie mentioned it, if they're in over their head, then you know what? We can never underestimate the impact that an imbalanced environment has on behavior. Sometimes we need to remove the dog from the environment,
Mm-hmm.
get the environment under control. Dog on dog conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's give the dogs a little time out, right? Maybe you send the dog to a board and train, even if it is for just some basic obedience and socialization, and then let's work on what's wrong with the environment and then reintegrate the dogs. That I could see, and I think that is a pretty good, because then safety's an issue, especially
Yes.
if there's other animals or children in the home. I could see that being a really responsible approach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Yeah. And if the owner is overwhelmed, but sincere about, wanting to help their dog, then there are people like Valerie who works with the owner and the dogs to try
Yep.
to get them emotionally stable and better able to deal with what's going on. So, yeah.
And before we end, I just wanted to ask Valerie, you said you wanted perhaps to comment once everybody else had. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
There's one thing that I thought of. One of the things that I've done to change my programs about halfway through last year, I've started now. So when somebody's in a board and train, unless this is a dangerous thing, one of the things I was finding with the board and trains is that the dog would be so transformed that people didn't recognize him when they would arrive, and then think, I had massively changed the dog in some way, or they were overwhelmed by how to meet the new dog in their place so that they could connect emotionally to the dog, and also it was too much change at once to accommodate how the dog had become rehabbed. So now I have people coming once a week because my shortest board and train's 4 weeks. So the people are coming once a week. So the first week, maybe the only thing we're doing is the dog is quiet in the parking lot while you're waiting over there, and we get the dog quiet and we can walk around and the dog isn't screaming and carrying on and separation anxiety or whatever. And that is often the first time that they recognize that something that's healthy is unhealthy and that we need change. By the next week, they're super engaged in what's next. And then they're walking the dog and we're doing better leash handling and we're reinforcing all the positive things that the dog is doing for them that he wasn't doing before. And it grows. So now the client is growing with the dog, even though I'm doing most of the handling and the transforming, they're catching up with the dog instead of walking in on, Cujo is now Lassie and they don't know what to do with it, but it's Lassie for me. So how I think this intermittent board and train style is working better for me and helping to transfer the dogs to the owners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, trainers, that pretty much wraps up our conversation. As usual, we could keep going for another couple hours on this. What I got out of what everybody was saying was that transparency certainly is important, that you knowing as a owner what's going on in that training facility. And I think also one of the things that I heard from everybody here was that if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So with that, trainers, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank everybody for watching. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, give us a thumbs up for this video. And if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.